From Creamer Media in Johannesburg, this is the Real Economy Report. Our top stories this week. We look at nuclear power as an option for South Africa. The platinum price collapsed along with the automotive market early last year, but a much-changed outlook is now lifting sentiment. And we look at South Africa's new aviation exhibition. Does South Africa still have a nuclear energy program? Keith Campbell answers this question.
The apparent axing by the government of South Africa's own Pebble-Bed modular reactor does not end this country's nuclear energy program, as it is still planned to build new pressure water reactors. But is nuclear a viable option for South Africa? I put this question to Northwest University Executive Director for Research and Innovation, Professor Frikkie van Niekerk.
I believe it is the only option if we think responsibly about what's happening. Worldwide, it has been shown that the nuclear option provides a steady, stable, reliable, cost-effective solution. We also need renewables, and I think for distributed power generation, renewables has a wonderful future. However, for large-scale baseload type applications, we need something that will be more sturdy in terms of its availability, and it is currently shown that the nuclear option provides that stable baseload for us. Internationally, there are pressures mounting that suggest that we have to move away from fossil fuel for power generation. And the only viable option, to my mind right now, is the nuclear option.
However, Claire Tucker, a partner in the Energy, Natural Resources and Environment Department of law firm Bowman Gilfillan, believes that South Africa's nuclear legislation needs updating.
I think there should be some sort of an overall coordinator of nuclear policy that's spoken of in the policy document, and it needs to be driven through legislation. I also think that there are changes to the regulation of nuclear facilities, nuclear installations that is needed in order to create bankable nuclear projects. I think that there are a number of changes to the licensing process that are needed to update them, to make them more investor friendly, to give investors an understanding of what is going to be involved in the licensing process, how long it's going to take, and what the milestones are within that licensing process that they can rely on.
Mining Weekly went to Impala Platinum's latest presentation to gain new insight. Martin Creamer reports.
The recovery in the platinum market has emphasized once again that the world's economic power has shifted east. Impala Platinum's Derek Engelbrecht reports.
The dismal automotive market, as well as the significant deleveraging by investors of commodities across the board, saw platinum prices drop from north of $2,000 down to a low of something like $750. You can be sure at the 750 level, some of our retirement dates were being studied very closely. But we held on. Prices started to recover. We are now at levels pre the Eskom crisis. The whole economic power has shifted east. Auto sales have been nothing short of astonishing in this market, and it's now the biggest market in the world, having overtaken the USA in 2009.
More cars were sold in China in just the month of January than for the entire year of 2002.
It's still clearly too early to start annualizing this number, but if one did, it points to a 15 to 16 million vehicle market, which would match, the USA in its kind of heyday.
Not to be sneezed at either are India's car sales.
India last year sold in excess of 2 million vehicles, and now rank only behind Germany and exceed all other European markets in terms of sales.
Motorcycle demand is now also entering the fray to boost platinum.
For both China and India, motorcycle production of almost 30 million units now require the fitment of catalytic converters.
Also presenting strong demand are the Platinum Exchange Traded Funds, or ETFs.
The impact of the launch of the US-based ETF in platinum and palladium has been significant. It took the Europeans 1 year to reach these levels, which the Americans have achieved in 1 month.
And then there's also jewelry, where the appetite for platinum has seemingly not abated.
Mid-February saw the inaugural Aviation Industry Rendezvous Africa exhibition. Keith Campbell was there.
Aviation Industry Rendezvous, or Air Africa 2010, is a new aviation exhibition for South and Southern Africa and was held at Gallagher Convention Centre in Midrand. I asked Duma Exhibitions Director and Air Africa organiser Lynn Brown what the primary focus of the show was.
Primary focus is on the general aviation, commercial aviation industry. It's an area where there's no specific exhibition. There was no specific exhibition in the country or on the subcontinent. So we were looking at an exhibition where we could promote aviation and only aviation, using dialogue sessions, exhibition stands, things like that. There were about just over 70 companies exhibiting on the show, and they ranged from recruitment companies, aviation recruitment companies, right through to engine repair, overhaul, signage companies, training companies, aircraft manufacturers and sales. The whole spectrum, tools, maintenance equipment, so there was the whole spectrum of the aviation industry. It was very interesting because we had exhibitors from Jordan, from Romania and their Mozambican counterparts. Canada was represented on the show, the US was represented on the show. In all we had 12 different countries represented on the show, which was obviously I'd say 60% were South African companies.
And now for a sneak preview of this week's Engineering News magazine. In our cover story, we report that French car manufacturer Renault has grown its South African sales by 70% to claw back its lost market share. State-owned freight logistics group Transnet expects to tap its recently established $2 billion global medium-term note program within the next 6 months. And we report that Ethiopia has been plunged into a major power crisis after the water passage tunnel of a newly inaugurated power plant collapsed. And in Mining Weekly this week, in this week's cover story, we report that urgent decisions are necessary to avoid the environmental consequences of acid mine drainage. Major world nuclear group Areva is considering constructing a uranium processing plant in South Africa. And read that platinum major Implats is withholding further expansionary investment in Zimbabwe until the Zimbabwean government resolves outstanding issues. That's Creamer Media's Real Economy Report. Join us again next week for more news and insight into South Africa's real economy.
Engineering news, not just for engineers.